Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Anandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtottara Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudikacharya, Ashtottara Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, now the question is, who's going to actually chant with me? And he is too shy. Yeah. All right, I'll do it myself. Okay. On this 23rd day of October, 2019, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are beginning chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, on page 303. 303. Okay. You got it, Mary? 303? Okay. All right. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Saktamana Parta Yogam Yunjan Marashayaha Asankshayam samagram mam Yata gyasati tachinu Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashayaha Asankshayam samagram mam Yata gyasati tachinu Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Saktamana Partha yogam yunjan marashrayah asangshayam samagram mam yata gyasati tatshinu. Okay, I'll read the synonyms myself. You just read along silently. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Lord said, Mahi, to me, asaktamanaha, mind attached, parta, O son of Pritha, yogam, self-realization, yunjan, practicing, mat ashrayaha, in consciousness of me, Krishna consciousness, asangshayam, without doubt, samagram, completely, mam, me, yata, how, gyasasi, you can know, tat, that, shinu, try to hear. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Purport. In this 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in all opulences, and how he manifests such opulences is described herein. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna, and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna, are described in this chapter. In the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul, capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahmajyoti or localized Paramatma realization is not perfect knowledge of the absolute truth, because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubt. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahmajyoti and Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, the material nature, and their manifestations with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is the first and most important. Shravana means hearing. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tatshanu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity to become a perfectly Krishna-conscious person. One has therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non-devotee upstart puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto as follows. Shinvatam sakata Krishna punya shavana kirtanaha vidyandaksto bhadrani vidunoti suritsatam nashtaprayesha bhadreshu nityam bhagavata seveya bhagavatuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki tadadatastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta eta anavidham stitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate vidyate vidya grantish chidyante sarva sangshayaha chiyante chasya karmani drishte vatmanishvare. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. This bhakti yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asankshayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17 to 21. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshurun milatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So we're commencing chapter 7. At the end of chapter 12, I think Srila Prabhupada mentions that the middle 6 chapters, with which we're beginning the first of those middle 6 chapters in the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, are the essence of the whole book. The whole philosophy is there. And this verse naturally follows the last verse of the previous chapter, in which Krishna says, as Prabhupada remarks, of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Now, the 6th chapter described what we call Ashtanga Yoga, the eightfold meditative yoga. Yama, niyama, which are moral codes. Yamas are the don'ts, and niyamas are the do's. In any moral code or any practice of dharma, there are things that are proscribed and things that are prescribed. So, do's and don'ts, the basic moral principles, self-control, ethical principles, and then perfecting asana, sitting postures. I remember when I first started Hatha Yoga back in 1972, before most of you were born, except maybe you. Part of the asana was learning how to sit. We started with half lotus with this here, and then finally we did full lotus, stretching your knees, and it helps you to sit straight up. Krishna recommends in the 6th chapter with neck, back, and head in straight line like that. So what's the point of these asanas? The whole point of the Ashtanga Yoga is to help you get hold of the mind, to concentrate the mind on Krishna within the heart. He mentions that in the 6th chapter here. Now, who is that Krishna within the heart? One may see the Super Soul, which is a 4-handed form, standing there. The devotees don't see that form of God in the heart. They see Shama Sundar, the famous 3-fold bending form playing the flute, Krishna in Vrindavan. That's mentioned in the Brahma Samhita. But the whole idea of any of these yogas is to help you to turn your attention away from things in the material world and thoughts about the material world toward the absolute truth, in the supreme form of the personality of Godhead. That's the idea of yoga. But the process that Krishna outlines in the 6th chapter, and it goes on from sitting to pranayama, that breath control which helps control the mind, withdrawing the senses, means sitting there in the cave or wherever you happen to be, and rejecting the thoughts of sense gratification that are going to cup up in the mind because you're conditioned, you're practiced to doing that. And then concentration, and then meditation, and then complete absorption, samadhi. Those are the 8 principles. Arjuna rejected that. He said it's too difficult. It's like controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind. How can you control the wind? We probably all had experiences of some extreme experience that happens. You can't get it out of your mind. That's what PTSD is all about. Mind is very obstinate, difficult to control. So Krishna says, yes, it's difficult, but it's possible by practice. He encourages Arjuna. Arjuna is doubtful. And Krishna says, well, even if you fail to complete the course, you'll be born in a family of yogis or a family of pure Brahmins, whatever, and continue. But after all of that, Krishna says in the end, but the greatest yogi is one who's always thinking of me in his heart with great faith and worshiping me. Arjuna's already doing that. Arjuna is an intimate friend of Krishna. He's way advanced, more advanced than any of these Ashtanga yogis practicing. So But what about us? How are we going to practice yoga? At the previous verse, the 646, you may recall, Krishna says, the yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Well, that's an injunction for all of us. If we're not going to be yogis, you know what we're going to be? Bogies. Bogies are one who try to enjoy sense gratification. That's why we're enjoined not to eat bhoga. We have to eat prasadam. You take the bhoga that you might want to eat yourself, you said, no, I'm going to offer it to Krishna. Be prepared for Krishna. Then it becomes prasadam, and eating becomes an act of yoga. You're connecting to Krishna. You should be reminded, oh, he's eaten this. It's an act of love. You're exchanging, eatables. So every function, everything that we do in life, and there's so many things we have to do, there's a way of doing it in a Krishna conscious way. Because I've been in this movement for 47 years almost, and from waking up and bathing and eating and doing everything, there's a way of doing it in Krishna consciousness. I'm not just waking up, so I can get on the freeway early enough to get to my job. I mean, some people get up at 4 o'clock in order to go on this hellish commute, so they can get to their job 50 or 75 miles away. That's happening. That's not yoga. They may be getting up, but the devotees are getting up for the purpose of coming and worshiping the Lord, practicing sadhana, chanting. In other words, connecting to Krishna. So, beginning in chapter 7, beginning with this verse, Krishna is going to explain to Arjuna, and through Arjuna to us, how we can lead our lives in such a way that the mind will be attracted to Krishna. That's the key. That the maya asakta mana. The whole chapter begins with those words. O Partha, O son of Pritha, I'm now going to tell you how your mind can be naturally attracted to me. Asakta means attracted. Through yoga and taking shelter of me, manashaya. And then without doubt, you will come to know me as far as possible, as far as it's possible to know me. In other words, I will enlighten you from within about the reality of who I am and how I am present in this world. And as we go on in this chapter, after some introductory verses, Krishna will describe how we can experience our ordinary world. He describes how he's present through his energies. Bhumar, Apo, Anano, Vayu, Kangmano, Buddha, these 8 energies, which we experience every day. But we don't experience them as divine because we've forgotten all about God. The earth, the matter, in other words, solid matter, the liquids, the gases, the radiant energy like electricity and fire, the space, our own mind, intelligence, and sense of self, what we call the ego. These are material elements, progressively finer and finer, but they're not alive. They're matter, but they're Krishna's energies. So we're experiencing them at every moment. Who can deny it? So with that understanding from reading Bhagavad Gita, we could say, oh, Krishna is everywhere. Just like if you see the classic example, the mother takes the child to the first day of school, like kindergarten. I think they still have kindergarten. Right? So you've had to deal with that, right? It's the first day of school. She's a teacher. So the kids, many of them are restless. Maybe they start crying for their mother, right? A lot of tears. So, but it's necessary. The mother, this is best for the child. I don't. Is there one kid who ever went spontaneously to school, and wanted to stop the play and sit there and try to learn the ABCs? Probably not, right? It's all like a discipline. The parents know this is best for the child in the long run, right? So the mother's back home now, and she goes into the kid's room, and it's a mess. She's got to clean it up. And there's the kid's little shoes that he wears around the house, or something. Oh. Tear comes down. She's not crying because of the shoe. She's crying because of the child. It reminds her of what the child did in the shoes and everything like that. So similarly, everything in this world is connected to Krishna, and it should remind us of Krishna. It will remind us if we read the philosophy. We understand how this is simply his energy, and he'll describe, well, how do we experience these 8 elements? The light of the sun, the taste of water, the fragrance of the earth. In other words, we experience through our senses. So he says, I am that taste of the water. I am that light of the sun and the moon. I am the ability, whatever you do, So in this way, if we remember these verses of Bhagavad Gita, we'll be remembering Krishna. We'll take it. But the trick is, how to use those things, to connect those things to Krishna practically. meaning the water, for instance. Okay, so I need to get some water to put into that little bowl there so that we can purify, or to offer to Krishna. Or so much we're bathing so that we'll be clean, so we go on the altar, we worship Krishna. In other words, water can be a paraphernalia for worshiping Krishna. What to speak of fire and cooking, you know what I mean? So this is Krishna consciousness. That's the meaning of these temples. I mean, here Krishna says, just hear from me. So maybe we can just chant Hare Krishna and hear Bhagavad Gita, and that's all we need to do. No. We need to have a place where we can see Krishna, the deity, you know, that he agrees to appear through a certain form, as carved in a certain way and worshipped in a certain way, so that we can see him and serve him, because we can't see spirit with our present eyes. But we can see stone, we can see wood, we can see paint, and so he manifests through those elements. They're his elements, after all, so that we can relate to him. And it's like this you know, I'm looking here, this is Krishna's Leela, there's Damodar Leela happening right there. It's just a progression, you know, it's a depiction, but it's you can be connected to Krishna that way. So that's what's going to happen in this chapter. But I wanted to also focus here on these 5 verses that Prabhupada mentions. He quotes in the purport. Welcome, Hare Krishna. We are on page 303. Hare Krishna. So, he quotes this section from the 2nd chapter, beginning Shrunvatam Sukata Krishna, if you look on page 304 in the purport. So this is all by way of illustrating the principle of hearing. This is the most important principle of Bhakti Yoga, is hearing. And Prabhupada mentions the 9 principles, I think. Anyway, there are basically 9 principles that have been defined as constituting Bhakti Yoga. They begin with hearing. So we can hear anything, right? What we choose to hear is like our most important decision in how our consciousness is going to become, you know, be formed. When you go to school at first day, the main thing is the children have to shut up and they have to hear from you, right? If they're not ready to hear from you, then you make sure that they they feel it. Yeah. Takes a while to quiet them down, right? Yes, because the tendency is to jabber, right? And it's a kind of a sense gratification, nonsense talking. But from hearing from the teacher, she's an actual teacher, Montessori school, you know? Yeah, you know about that school. Okay, great. Well, maybe you can have a connection there. So, so as it says at the beginning of the 2nd cantos, a 2nd chapter. Shrotavyana nirajendra ninang sandisahasyacha pushyatam atma tatam griheshu gahamedinam. That first he praises these questions coming from Maharaj Pariksit. This is another very dramatic conversation. When you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you realize it's just like the Gita. There's a very dramatic and significant conversation that goes on. And the basic conversation is between this great sage Shukadev Goswami and his king, Maharaj Pariksit. Now, how that conversation came to be, I can tell maybe later on. But it's very, you know, it's earth-shattering. All the great sages from all over the universe came to listen to this conversation. And so Maharaj Pariksit asked, now he was cursed to die in 7 days. He could have counteracted the curse because he had the power, he was a devotee, but he accepted it as Krishna's will. And he retired from his being the emperor of the world and just put on simple clothes and sat down by the bank of the Ganges and just to see what would happen. And so Shukadev came, you know, and great sages came again from all over the universe and waited. And then the greatest sage of that time, the Bodhi sage, came, Shukadev, and spoke the Bhagavad Purana, 18,000 verses. This is only 700 verses. So it took 7 days, 24 hours a day of speaking to finish that Bhagavatam. So right near the beginning, 2nd canto, out of 12 cantos, right at the beginning of the 2nd canto, Shukadev has this about what to hear. You're talking about hearing. He says, besides the subject matter that we're dealing with, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our relation to Him, yoga, bhakti yoga, and everything, there are millions of other subject matters. That's not a mystery to us. Just get on the internet. You know, there's millions and millions of sites you can go to. You can become utterly degraded just by sitting there on your screen. And some people become addicted to unmentionable things right on the screen. Or if you press other keys, make other decisions, there's so many sites, so many kirtans. Get onto YouTube and just chant Hare Krishna kirtan. You can spend the rest of your life just listening to this great kirtan. So it all depends on what we choose to hear. But in this verse he says, those who don't choose to hear about Krishna, they have millions of things to hear. And they're completely in illusion, they're completely attached, and they're not progressing in their life. So here in this first canto, this section here, he's describing the result of hearing about Krishna from the right source. And the first thing is we should understand that Krishna is in our heart. So the first verse is Shrinvatam Sakata Krishna Punyashavana Kirtana Kuridyantaksto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Surit Satam. So what Shrinvatam means, those who are hearing about Krishna. Krishna himself, he's the subject of the sentence. He purifies the unwanted things in the heart. Vidunoti literally means to cleanse away. When we are hearing with concentration from the right source and the right subject matter. And the result is Nasta Prayasha Bhadreshu, these abhadras, these inauspicious things in the heart, such as material desire, hatred, greed, illusion, doubt, all of these things are almost destroyed. When they're almost destroyed, one becomes fixed in devotion to Krishna. And the result of that is that the lower modes of nature, now we need to understand something about how the modes of nature work, the mode of passion, goodness, and ignorance. And those things, like the mode of rajas, will induce us to be very lusty and greedy, if that overtakes our mind. If we become controlled by the mode of ignorance, then we'll be lazy, and we'll be prone to intoxication and anger, those things. Mode of goodness, we become more thoughtful and calm and peaceful and clean. So all of these modes, now there's no pure mode of goodness, it's all tinged, but those modes take a back seat, become cleansed of them, and you become fixed in goodness. And therefore the lust, anger, and greed, etc. No longer bother you. Then you become joyful, naturally joyful at heart, prasanna manasa, by the process of bhakti yoga, Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga. And you become realized, you see within the heart Krishna, and he becomes more and more manifest within and without. And then you're liberated from the entanglement with the material world, and then all of your doubts are destroyed because you're having direct experience. If someone describes Beijing, has anyone been to Beijing? Maybe you've been to it. I was never. But we believe it exists, right? Because of so many books and pictures, and maybe some of our friends were there, But if you actually go, and you visit Beijing and you walk around, no one can convince you that there isn't a place, Beijing. Whereas before, it's kind of theoretical. I haven't directly experienced it. So this vijnana means you directly experience Krishna within and without, and your doubts about the existence of the Lord are destroyed. And then he says, drishta evat manishvade, that you see the Lord within your heart directly. So this all starts with hearing. And that's what the last words of the first verse in this chapter are, tatchanu. Therefore, hear from me, O Arjuna. This is now your process of yoga. You don't have to go off somewhere else into a holy place. The holiest place is right here with me on the chariot. I'm speaking to you directly. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You just listen to me, and you become completely realized. Now, this is encouraging for us. We can do that. Don't be fooled. If you take this Bhagavad Gita seriously and you read it and you take it in your heart, it's just like being on the chariot with Krishna. He's directly speaking to us because Krishna is absolute. His words are absolute, and it doesn't matter what language this is. English. This book has been translated into 60 different languages. So those who are Chinese, Russian, whatever it may be, they're also hearing Krishna directly if they're taking the words in. So with that introduction, now let's hear from Krishna. See what he says. Text number 2. Do you want to try to chant also? We're a little weak on the chanting, but she's helping. Okay. Text 2. Jnanam te hamsa vijnanam idam bhakshyam yasheshata yagyatva neha bhuyon yaj gyatavyam avashishyate I shall now declare, Krishna says to Arjuna, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Now, this phenomenal and numinous, what does that mean? Material and spiritual. Purport, complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned systems of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. In the beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord, and it is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord in disciplic succession, directly from the Lord. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes, and the only object for meditation in all types of yoga practice. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas, the Mundaka Upanishad 113 say, Kasmin nu bhagavo vigyate savmidam vigyatam bhavatiti, which more or less means that when Bhagavan is known, then everything else is known. You understand the position of everything else. So, I shall now declare both phenomenal and numinous, this being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So, the philosophy that Lord Chaitanya taught is based on Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and it's meant to lead us to an understanding of the ultimate truth, the ultimate source of everything. We can go to the first 3 sutras of the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra means the aphorisms that describe the end of all knowledge, the culmination of all knowledge. Veda means knowledge, Anta means end or culmination. So this is what we should aspire for. As human beings, we have a mission in life. And that mission is to inquire about where we came from. What's the source of everything? Why is there anything? Is there a God or not? What's the meaning of all of this? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I was asking, I didn't have the right source to ask from. I was studying existentialism and all these things, and a lot of it was, well, there really isn't any ultimate meaning and all, you know what I mean? It's just what is. You just be in the moment, or whatever they had, In other words, no one had an answer. But I, fortunately, eventually met the devotees, came in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books, and that was the answer. That was the questions that you were encouraged to ask. And here's the answer. In other words, don't get hung up with being on the search. The search is leading you to Krishna. And once you accept that, then you can nicely practice the process where you become more and more aware of Krishna in your own life and your relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, if you're afraid of actually finding the result, because the result of your quest means, oh, now there are things to do in order to perfect your understanding of that absolute truth. It's not that you're eternally on the quest, and that's really what I like, is the quest. That's another form of Maya. So Krishna is encouraging us. Now I'm going to tell you about myself, and you can understand me in full. Here it is. Now don't reject it. Don't have any doubts. And that was Prabhupada's great gift to us. One of his great gifts is faith. And because it came because of him, because of his own personality. When someone is absolutely sure of something, then you can pick up on that. It's not that they're trying to sell you something that they haven't experienced. They're trying to give you something that they have experienced, the greatest treasure. And Prabhupada, when he came to America, he was on fire. He'd sacrificed so much, practically sacrificed his life just coming to America, in order to give us the greatest treasure that there can possibly be. The knowledge of God and our relationship with God and the means to realize it. Just knowing is not enough. Bhagavad Gita was present in America in translation several hundred years before Prabhupada came. And basically the translations were the same, but nobody became a devotee because it hadn't been presented by a devotee. Someone has to be personifying, exemplifying the principles in the book to really instill you with faith, enough faith to take the process so that you can also... And Prabhupada gave us that, and that's what this movement is all about. So, Jnanam and Vigyan. Jnanam is what we call theoretical knowledge. In other words, I can know, I'm a spirit soul, Krishna is God, and I'm his eternal servant. But I may know that only theoretically. I believe it, but I don't have direct experience of it. But Vijnana is, we probably call it scientific knowledge, means direct perception. Then no one can shake your faith because you've experienced it. Someone says, oh, this is the finest honey. Is there something called mandukya honey? Have you heard of that? Yeah. It's like, you know about that, right? It's kind of medicinal. Someone gave me a jar. Honestly, I haven't tasted it yet. Oh. But I'm illustrating a point here. So this is the greatest honey, you know. So I believe them because they're like rolling their eyes, you know. I eat this every day. You can see how healthy I am. You know. Okay, you know, I'll try it. So on the basis of that faith, I will open it up. I'll offer it to Krishna. You know, open it up and actually taste it, and then I'll have vigyan. So the gyan is coming, knowledge is coming from just hearing, but vigyan is coming from experiencing, directly tasting. So Krishna says, I'm going to give you knowledge now, and if you follow my instructions, you'll get vigyan, you'll get direct experience. It won't be theoretical. And by that knowledge, there will be nothing further to be known. You know, I mean, that's quite a claim, but Krishna's making the claim. You have to believe it. In other words, you'll know where everything stands. You'll know the relations of everything to yourself and to God, and how. And you know, the basic thing is this usable in Krishna's service? You know, so many things we wouldn't even think of, but you know that can be used. And that's the genius of the Vaishnava and the Gaudiya Vaishnava. How you can use practically everything in Krishna service. The computers and the cars. Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta, was a revolutionary. He was a great Vaishnava, but he was the one who first, you know, you see him dressed in a suit. Well, that's unheard of for a sannyasi, you know, before him. But he wanted to meet with the British at the time, you know, and he's sitting there with leading, because they'll be influential. You know, if one of them can become serious devotee, they can have so much effect. So he would drive in cars, and Prabhupada used airplanes, you know, which until Prabhupada's time, oh no, we won't go on an airplane. But then you how can you go across the world? Prabhupada went around the world 14 times. You had to use the airplane. His first trip was on a cargo ship. It took him 3 months to get to America. Next time he came to America, it was on an airplane. It took him 6 hours or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So what's better? He can get down and meet more people, you know, like that. And so much money can be used and spent for Krishna, not for sense gratification, you know. So that's the idea of gyatavim of vishishyate. There will be nothing further to be known. Okay, let's go on. Now Krishna says something very encouraging, that this is very rare, because you know, in other words, we're the select few who are interested. You know. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Does it take? Go ahead. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Kaschid yatati siddhaye. Yatatam api siddhanam. Kaschin mam veti tatpataha. Out of many thousands among men, that means human beings, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So we want to be among those select, right? Purport, there are various grades of men, human beings, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super-self, and the process of realization by jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. That's bhakti yoga. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Person, but at the same time, he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Yogis means the meditative yogis. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Shankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda. And then Prabhupada quotes from the Brahma Samhita here. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarvakarna Karanam. I'll give you a quick translation of that. This is the first verse of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita. We only have one chapter, and that is the 5th chapter. And here it says that the Supreme Controller, Parama Ishvara, is Krishna, who has a form, Vigraha, that is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Anadir, he has no beginning. There's no source of Krishna. He existed forever. Adir, he is the beginning of everything else. Govinda, he is known as Govinda, the pleaser of the cows and the senses in Vrindavan, Lila. Sarvakarna Karanam, he's the cause of all causes. When you contemplate this world, you can see that everything in it has a cause or causes. This building, the first beginning of the cause of this building is an idea in somebody's brain, which then manifests as a blueprint. Right? There's a blank field here where we're sitting, and it manifests as a blueprint. So that's part of the cause of the causes of this building. Then comes, the capitalist or whoever wants to build a building, hoping to make some money on it, build a warehouse or whatever it was. So that's an important part of the cause, his desire to manifest a building where he can make money. And he hires the architect, he conceives of the building. Okay, so this all goes into it. Another part of the cause of the very materials, the cement, the brick, the whatever else they put in this building. Those are also kinds of causes. Then you have the labor of the actual people who put it together. All of these are like strings of causes, you see. And then ultimately the effect is the building as we see it here. Now, the building was then taken over by devotees and returned a warehouse or a theater, whatever it was, and into a temple. It took a year to, put all this decoration in here and carve the things and painting, And I knew some of the devotees who did that. They came down from L.A. This was before I got here. This is 78. So anything you see has this cause and effect, just like our cells. The whole family tree thing. I don't know if you've ever done that. I remember as a kid. Oh, there's great grandma. Yeah, here's an old picture of great grandma. Like that. So, that's who I really am. I look back in your causes. So the cause of all causes, the beginning of all causes, is Krishna. He manifests the material things. He the subtle minds and everything. Everything is coming from him. So that's what this verse says. And again, going back to the Vedanta Sutra, where the devotee Vyasa Devi says, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. This is such an easy Sanskrit one. Why don't we learn this? It's not a verse, it's just an aphorism. And we'll learn how to pronounce this one correctly. Maybe one of these days we'll have a little pronunciation class. We can go over Sanskrit. But now this is one. Atato, say atato. Atato. Now that's two words actually. ATH and ATO combined becomes atato. Ata means now. Ato means therefore. Now therefore. You see? Atato. Then Brahma. Say Brahma. Okay. Atato Brahma. Okay, very good. And that Brahma means the source of everything. The absolute truth. The Karana Karanam. Jigyasa, which means to be inquisitive. Now, therefore, what does now mean? Now that you're a human being, don't live like an animal. There's a lot of implications here. Direct your intelligence. Now, therefore, you're a human being. Therefore, direct your intelligence toward inquiring into Brahman, into the absolute truth. This is the real human function. Not diverting your attention to material things, and basically for the four animal principles: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and all of their corollaries. We do that. The animal does that. If we're only absorbed in those, and it may be a very fancy way, we're leading animal life. But if we inquire, we sit in Bhagavad Gita class here, read Bhagavad Gita, we're looking into what is the ultimate source of everything. So then the answer comes in the next sutra. We won't learn this one, but I'll just give it to you. So now therefore, atato brahma jigyasa, now therefore be inquisitive about the absolute truth, the source of everything. What is that absolute truth? Janmad yasya yataha. So this is a combination of words. Janma, adi, asya yataha. Asya means this manifestation of all of this that we see, cosmos. Janma means birth, adi means etc. So after birth comes maintenance and ultimately destruction. Everything material goes through those things, including our own body. We all took birth, now we're being maintained, and eventually it will be destroyed. It'll be destroyed. We won't be destroyed. The body will be destroyed. Yataha means the source of the birth, maintenance, and destruction of this cosmos. That's what Brahman is. In other words, that which is never born and destroyed or changed, but which is the source of all of these varieties of manifestation that we see, and into which everything will ultimately merge, and stay unmanifested for countless eons. That's what we should be inquisitive about. Now, how do we where are we going to look? The Shastra. That's the third sutra. Shastra Yonitvat. Yonitvat means the source. It often means the source of birth. So the source of birth for your knowledge about the absolute truth, where everything came from, etc., is the Shastra. And so we need that accurate, revealed scripture that has been spoken by God originally. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna, And those who are following Krishna, what they write, that's also Shastra. And that's what Prabhupada gave us. This Bhagavad Gita, as it is, of course, comprises the translations, the original Sanskrit, the translations, and the purport. Purport means the meaning commentary. So all that together is following the third sutra. You want to know about the absolute truth? Here it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is, you see. And the other books of Srila Prabhupada. So that Vedanta Sutra is meant for us. And the whole Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. It starts with the same words, Janmad yasya yataha, but goes on. Janmad yasya yaton vayadi tadatashtartesha vigyasvara. Describing Krishna's spiritual world, how he enlightened Brahma, how he manifested everything, So this is what we have. So now, Krishna is saying here, did we read this whole purport here? We did, of course. So he's saying this is very rare for someone to be interested in this. Manushyanam said only a few try for perfection, and those who achieve some kind of perfection, not the supreme, then a few of them know me in truth. So in other words, we won the lottery. You're not only a human being, which is very rare, but you're a human being who are inquiring about Krishna. That's why you're here in this room. And we're very fortunate to have all the information by which we can understand Krishna in truth. If we just follow his instruction, just listen to him, read the book with sincerity, and try to apply the principles in your life, then Krishna will enlighten you from within about himself, who is himself the absolute truth. The ultimate truth is a person. Very logically, we talk about cause and effect. So there can be nothing in the effect that isn't there in the cause or causes. And we talked about the idea and the blueprint, right? So the building manifests according to the blueprint. If something else is built, then that's bringing in another cause. But if everything is coming from that set of causes, it has to be there in the effect. The different paints that we use, okay, there they are. The different ideas and the artistic thing, it all gets manifest. It has to be there originally. So here we are, we're all sitting here, we're all persons, right? We have a form, we have a mind, intelligence, we have desires, we have senses. So that means the absolute truth must have personhood. How can non-personhood become, the Brahman, just undifferentiated consciousness, cannot produce personhood with all of the varieties of activities and emotions and everything that we are. So therefore, the ultimate truth is the Supreme Person. And one of his subsidiary manifestations is Brahman, which is pure consciousness, white light, and the localized Paramatma, which is an expansion in everyone's heart, in everyone's atom, in every atom, sustaining the universe, and within our heart, giving us knowledge, giving us remembrance, and also helping us forget those things that we really want to forget because they're too traumatic, like our previous death. No one can remember that. I can, right? But all of these, we've been through so much to come to this point. If we couldn't forget that, we couldn't live in this lifetime. We'd have all massive cases of PTSD. So, this is how Krishna manifests, both expanding himself and through the spiritual energy, and also through the material energy. And this is, he's the cause of all causes. Now, I don't think we finished this purport. No, we just got to Ishvara Parama Krishna. So let's read from the bottom of page 306, and then, oh God, I'm losing track of time. All right, it's almost time. I'll just finish this purport, then we'll adjourn. It is very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy, as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti is practiced by the unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti, may be easy. But when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12101, Shruti Smriti Paranari Pancharatra Vidhing Vina Aikantiki Hare Bhakti Rutpat Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It's not possible for the Brahman-realized impersonalist or the Paramatma-realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muhyanti Yatsurya, this is from the first verse of Bhagavatam. Mam tu Vedana Kashchana, from the present verse of Gita. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says, and if one does know him, then Samahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, tatvataha, even though one is a great scholar or philosopher. Only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities in Krishna, his being the cause of all causes, his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees. He is the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore it is said, Atakshi Krishna Namadi, etc. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. And this is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-234. And I'm sorry, we've kind of gone over time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. And now we will adjourn for the kirtan. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.